Tonight, states of emergency as hundreds flee ahead of out-of-control wildfires on the East Coast. Dry conditions are fueling raging fires. Some residents are watching helplessly as their homes are threatened by the flames. Firefighters from all over the country rushing in. The massive new job cuts by RFK Jr. at the health department. 10,000 people let go on top of the 10,000 already lost through buyouts and early retirement. How could these cuts impact the country's health?
It's over for everyone of this family. Dominique is dead.
Her mother's case stunned the world. Now the daughter of Giselle Pellico, who opted for a public trial that led to the rape convictions of her husband and 50 other men, is shedding the pain of her father's actions and finding a collective fight for justice.
We see her impact in fashion and culture to this day. She's become, cultural patrimony, the heritage that we pass on to our daughters. She's become bigger than just Selena Quintanilla. She's all of us.
It's been nearly 3 decades since the world lost a cultural icon in Selena Quintanilla. Now her convicted killer is about to be up for parole for the very first time. Will she be granted freedom or stay behind bars?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin tonight with those massive cuts at the Department of Health and Human Services and what they may mean for Americans. 10,000 people at the nation's health agencies laid off. That's on top of nearly 10,000 staff already cut through buyouts and previous layoffs. Tonight, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. says it will be a painful period, but promises his department will do more with less and that no American is going to be left behind. But tonight, experts and former HHS secretaries are sounding the alarm, saying lives could be lost, calling the cuts alarming. And there's concern there could be reverberating damage to the U.S. health system. ABC senior political correspondent Rachel Scott leads us off from the White House.
Tonight, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., announcing a massive overhaul of the agency that oversees America's health, supervises Medicare and Medicaid, and monitors food and drug safety. It includes cutting 20,000 people from the department, a quarter of its workforce.
This will be a painful period for HHS as we downsize from 82,000 full-time employees to around 62,000. I want to promise you now that we're going to do more with less.
But experts, including Dr. Richard Besser, former acting director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, insist you can't cut that many jobs without people in America, quote, suffering.
I worry that in this drive to cut positions and save money, critical programs that impact on people's lives are going to be cut as well.
Kennedy also plans to consolidate agencies within HHS.
We're going to eliminate an entire alphabet soup of departments and agencies while preserving their core functions by merging them into a new organization called the Administration for a Healthy America, or AHA.
The FDA will lose 3,500 employees, and the CDC will lose 2,400. That agency also narrowing its scope to focus on preparing for and responding to epidemics and outbreaks. For decades, the agency has handled so much more, monitoring nationwide health trends, including chronic diseases, firearm injuries, and overdose deaths.
CDC has incredible expertise in heart disease, in cancer, in smoking prevention. If CDC loses the ability to work on those, someone else is going to have to pick that up, and no one's going to do it as well as CDC.
Rachel joins us now from Washington. And Rachel, switching gears, I know you got a bit of a scoop a short time ago about the Smithsonian and Trump's plans. Tell us more.
Yeah, the president signed this executive order just hours ago that is directing as federal agencies, directing the Smithsonian, his administration, to remove what the administration believes could be divisive or anti-American rhetoric. And this could be really far-reaching, Linsey, and it is important because this does stretch all the way to the Smithsonian museums that are here. But also this order does also particularly note any monuments that have been taken down over the last 5 years. We all remember in the wake of George Floyd being killed that there was a series of monuments that were either taken down or renamed. In many cases, those monuments now could be put back up, and museums may have to correct any sort of language that this administration finds to be particularly divisive or, in their words, anti-American. Lindsay.
Very interesting move. All right, Rachel Scott, our thanks to you. Tonight, Doge leader Elon Musk and members of his team sat down with Bret Baier on Fox to talk about their cost-saving efforts and some of the legal challenges they've faced along the way. Let's take a listen.
The D.C. Circuit is notorious for having a very far-left bias. And when you look at the people close to some of these judges, where are they working? Oh, they're working at these NGOs. Oh, they're the ones getting this money. Does that seem like a system that lacks corruption? It sounds like corruption to me. Unless this exercise is successful, the ship of America will sink. That's why we're doing it.
The White House is now acknowledging mistakes were made when top administration officials used a Signal app group chat to discuss details ahead of military strikes in Yemen. That chat mistakenly included Atlantic Magazine's editor-in-chief. The Attorney General has been downplaying the severity of the incident, but there are bipartisan calls in Congress for accountability. Our Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz has the latest.
Tonight, the top Republican and Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee calling for an investigation into the group chat on the Signal app where Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth revealed detailed information about the military strike on Yemen. A reporter mistakenly added to the chat. The senators say the episode raises questions as to the use of unclassified networks to discuss sensitive and classified information. President Trump says he doesn't know whether or not classified information was shared.
I don't know. I'm not sure. You'll have to ask the various people involved. I really don't know.
Secretary Hegseth insists it wasn't.
Nobody's texting war plans.
What's not in dispute is that hours before U.S. air and missile strikes were launched, Hegseth told the group, including that reporter, detailed information, including which aircraft would be involved, what time they would be launched, and exactly when the bombs would drop. For days, the White House downplayed the security breach, but today, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt acknowledging a mistake was made, pointing the finger at National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who created the group chat and added the reporter inadvertently.
Well, we have never denied that this was a mistake, and the National Security Advisor took responsibility for that, and we have said we are making changes.
Martha Raddatz joins us now. So, Martha, the AG says that it was sensitive, not classified information. I know you've talked to people at the Pentagon and elsewhere. What are they saying?
Well, the military officers we've spoken to remain really just dumbfounded that Hegseth shared details of the attack hours before it happened, and pilots telling us it could have put the crews flying those missions at far greater risk. Lindsay?
All right, Martha Raddatz for us. Thanks so much, Martha. Tonight, a Tufts University grad student and Fulbright scholar is in ICE detention. Federal agents swarmed in to arrest the woman outside her Massachusetts home. She's now being held in ICE detention. Our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, reports.
This is the moment federal agents in masks and hoodies detain Tufts University doctoral student Rumeysa Öztürk.
Where the police?
The Turkish national handcuffed and led away, one of at least a half dozen international students targeted in recent weeks after voicing support for Palestinians.
If ICE comes to your door, keep the door closed.
Overnight, more than 1,000 demonstrators protesting her arrest at Tufts. Öztürk's attorney said it appears the only thing she's being targeted for is her right to free speech. But the Department of Homeland Security accused her of engaging in activities in support of Hamas.
Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa.
Öztürk, a Fulbright scholar, co-wrote this op-ed criticizing Tufts for failing to recognize Palestinian genocide. Hamas is not mentioned.
She makes sure that she doesn't offend anyone, let alone, possibly incite violence. She's not that person. She's not aggressive.
And tonight, the University of Alabama says one of its doctoral students, Iranian national Alireza Daroudi, has been detained. Detaining these students is part of the Trump administration's hardline immigration policy. That crackdown is also sending suspected gang members to a prison in El Salvador, visited by the Homeland Security Secretary.
If you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face.
Aaron Katersky joins us now. And just to take a turn here, what is the DHS's explanation for these arrests?
Well, none of them have been charged with any crimes, but the Department of Homeland Security say they represent a risk to U.S. foreign policy. That's kind of an untested theory for detaining all of these students who are, in one way or other, in the country legally. Their free speech rights are protected. The administration says their right to be in the country is not. It's a privilege that can be revoked. So ultimately, Linsey, it's probably going to be left to the courts to decide.
I would imagine so. All right, Aaron, thank you so much. A Columbia student sued the U.S. this week to prevent her deportation and won, at least for now. Homeland Security was trying to detain Yunsa Chan following her participation in campus protests against Israel's military actions in Gaza. The 21-year-old junior is a green card holder originally from South Korea who's lived in the United States since she was 7. A federal judge in New York issued a temporary restraining order Tuesday blocking authorities from detaining her or transferring her outside the district. Jordan Wells is a lawyer on Ms. Chun's case and joins us now. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Homeland Security says your client, quote, engaged in concerning conduct, including when she was arrested by NYPD during a protest, a pro-Hamas protest. What was your client doing when she was arrested?
Thank you for having me. Our client, like many other college students across the country for decades, is participating in demonstrations and expressing her heartfelt political beliefs. And it is a very scary and daunting proposition that the Secretary of State can single out a college student and say, I don't like the content of what you are saying, and you must leave the country, especially our client who has lived in this country since she was 7 years old and is a high school valedictorian, junior at an Ivy League university. It is absolutely preposterous to suggest that her speech on a college campus poses serious foreign policy consequences for the United States. And I think Secretary of State Rubio's comments go towards showing that he is applying a very broad brush and, eliminating people's immigration status with far and wide without at all tethering it to foreign policy consequences, which is the narrow basis on which the immigration statute lets him make those determinations.
And Secretary of State Rubio says the law is clear and it's on the government side. Here's what he told reporters today.
If you invite me into your home because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner, and I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, I bet you're going to kick me out. Well, we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us.
How do you respond to that?
Well, we know that Secretary Rubio's actions are based on the content of the messages that are being expressed on college campuses. We know that he is singling out speech that he doesn't like and that the Trump administration doesn't like for negative treatment. And so that is just completely anathema to the First Amendment. All of us should feel intimidated by that because it's not just my client's right, but it's everyone's right to the free exchange of ideas without a government censor coming in and saying, you can't talk about this particular issue, or you can't have a viewpoint on this particular issue. It's not about rowdiness. It's about the message that's being expressed, and the government should never be in the position of singling out disfavored messages and disfavored messengers for negative treatment.
And Secretary Rubio also said that the State Department has revoked more than 300 student visas. Why do you think that they seem to be singling out students?
I think, it's a terrible move on their part. I think Americans across the country are revolting at the news that students, we've got Fulbright scholars, we have high school valedictorians. I mean, these are people that are, going through the educational process and, being exposed to new political ideas and expressing political ideas. That's honestly they're going after our universities, really. I mean, our universities are meant to be the place for exchanging ideas more than anywhere else in society. And so to start there, I think should send a chill down everybody's spine that this administration is dead set on silencing viewpoints that it disagrees with.
How is Yunsa responding and processing all of this?
She is relieved at the court's order. She, I think, could never have imagined several months ago that just participating in a protest could all of a sudden draw the ire of the Secretary of State of the United States. I mean, it's ridiculous that we've gotten to this point. So she is, for the moment, relieved and taking it day by day.
Jordan Wells, we thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Tonight, there's a wildfire threat across large parts of the East Coast in South Carolina. New evacuations have been ordered and at least 1,400 homes and businesses impacted. ABC's Faith Abube reports from North Carolina.
Tonight, D.C. tents dropping retardant from the air. Firefighters from all over the U.S. battling the Black Cove complex fire, now considered the highest priority wildfire in the entire country.
A lot of this fire has been terrain driven, and it's really steep, it's really rugged terrain, inaccessible terrain in many places.
At least 11 homes have burned, the entire region essentially a tinderbox.
Things that we typically do haven't been working because of all that blowdown from Helene, and we're losing containment lines that normally we're able to hold.
Any gust of wind can fuel the spread of a new fire.
We didn't know if we were going to come home to losing everything we had.
Late Wednesday in Buncombe County, Donna Bryant rushing home from work to grab what she could after a new fire broke out just feet from her house.
On my way home, I'm like, is the clothes on my back going to be all that I have at the end of the day?
In South Carolina, evacuations continuing for the Table Rock complex fire, affecting more than 1,400 homes and businesses. Firefighters using bulldozers and chainsaws in rough terrain to make containment lines. The battle there far from over.
Our thanks to Faith for that. Overseas now to a deadly tourist submarine accident in Egypt. At least 6 people were killed, 2 of them children, and dozens more people of various nationalities need to be rescued. An urgent investigation into how this happened is ongoing. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
At least 6 people are dead tonight, including 2 children, after a tourist submarine sank off the coast of Egypt. 50 people were on board when the underwater sightseeing boat crashed into a coral reef, according to an early investigation. The urgent rescue operation unfolding in the Red Sea near the popular resort of Hurghada. Dozens pulled from the water.
Everything is okay.
Local officials visiting survivors in the hospital. At least 23 people injured. Authorities say all those killed were Russian nationals. The submarine seen in this promotional video, it can dive up to 80 feet underwater. It's not clear if the vessel that sank today was fully submerged at the time. Videos taken on previous trips show how tourists would climb down the hatch and the tight quarters once inside.
Trevor Ault reporting. Tonight, we're learning more about the full impact of President Trump's new automobile tariffs. Moody's Analytics estimates the new tax on all cars and many car parts coming into the U.S. could raise the cost of a typical new vehicle by more than $8,000. The tariffs are set to begin to go into effect midnight, April 3rd. But when will the impact begin to be felt? Our Jacqueline Lee joins us now. Jacqueline, give us a sense of which automakers will be hit the hardest by these tariffs.
Lindsay, we're seeing companies that make their cars overseas hit the hardest. Think Volvo, Mazda, Volkswagen, Hyundai. They imported at least 60% of their U.S. sales, according to S&P Global Mobility. And the U.S. companies like General Motors have been hit the hardest because roughly half of the cars that they sell have been assembled in other countries like Mexico. A massive concern right now is the cost of imported car parts. Lindsay.
All right. And when will price start going up at this point?
So we're going to start seeing prices creep up in the next month or two. What's important to know is when you're assembling a car, the different parts are constantly crossing borders. And each time that happens, it is expected to be tariffed. And that is why so many people are expecting the cost to go up dramatically.
What advice do experts have for those who are in the market trying to buy a car at this point?
So they say you do not want to wait. You want to buy it as soon as possible. Ultimately, what's going to happen is the new car prices are going to go up, but also used prices are going to go up. So typically, if people think, oh, I can't afford a new car, I'm going to go buy a used one. Now there's going to be more demand for those used cars. And if you remember back during the pandemic when we had that supply shortage issue, that is what we're going to see is car prices going up. So people do not want to wait. Lindsay.
All right. Good advice there. Jacqueline Lee for us. Thanks so much. We're learning King Charles was sent to the hospital today. The palace says this followed his ongoing treatment for cancer. Our chief international correspondent, James Longman, joins us now from London. James, what do we know?
Yeah, Lindsay, a very late announcement from the palace tonight saying Charles was taken to the hospital briefly today after he experienced side effects from his ongoing cancer treatment. Now, they called these side effects temporary, but they were serious enough that Charles required a short period of observation in the hospital. Now, he is back home now at Clarence House, but as a precautionary measure, they say all his engagements tomorrow have been cancelled. His cancer diagnosis was made public in February last year, but he has been back to full official duties for some time. The palace says they don't anticipate major changes to the schedule. There's a state visit by Italy in just over a week's time. They say that should go ahead. Lindsay?
Okay. All right, James, we know you'll keep us posted. Thanks so much. A high-level American delegation led by Vice President J.D. Vance is heading to Greenland tomorrow as President Trump continues to insist that the U.S. will gain control of the island and, quote, go as far as we have to go in order to get it. ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran is there. So, Terry, why is this visit so important?
Lindsay, this is a dramatic moment in the struggle for Greenland. President Trump has declared, quote, one way or the other, the U.S. will get Greenland. And that's the real reason that Vice President Vance is coming here. He's going to be up at a U.S. Space Force base in the far north of Greenland, but his message is much bigger than that. The administration argues that Greenland, which is an autonomous part of Denmark, has been neglected by the Danes and by previous U.S. administrations, and Greenlanders would be better off under U.S. ownership. This wild land is rich in rare earth minerals, and it sits along strategic sea lanes that are opening up from climate change, and Russia and China know that too. But right now, Greenlanders reject Trump's goals. They say, the foreign minister is saying that if the vice president were to go to a town here, he'd be greeted with chants of Yankee go home. Lindsay?
Terry, thank you. Army officials say there's an urgent recovery mission underway after 4 soldiers went missing from a training exercise in Lithuania. The soldiers, who are all based at Fort Stewart, Georgia, went missing early Tuesday during a maintenance mission to recover another vehicle in the training area. The 70-ton vehicle the soldiers were traveling in was located submerged in a pond. Thick forests and challenging terrain are hampering recovery efforts. Hundreds of U.S. and Lithuanian soldiers are helping. Police have made an arrest for that fiery attack on a Las Vegas Tesla dealership. 36-year-old Paul Kim faces 15 counts, including suspicion of arson and discharging a firearm into a vehicle. A video from earlier this month shows the flames and explosions. You see them there. Police raided Kim's home, finding firearms and a gun belt. They do not believe anyone else was involved, but are trying to determine whether Kim is part of an organized group targeting Tesla. Today, President Trump said that he asked Representative Elise Stefanik to withdraw her nomination to be United Nations ambassador. The president cited that with a, quote, very tight majority, he does not want her seat potentially up for grabs. Currently, Republicans hold a narrow 5-seat majority in the House. Stefanik has not yet issued a statement. Coming up, a doctor in court today after being charged with attempted murder. Authorities say he tried to push his wife off of a cliff in Hawaii on her birthday. Plus, 30 years after pop singer and Tejano legend Selena Quintanilla was murdered, her killer could walk free from prison. The late-breaking decision from the Texas Parole Board after the break. Nearly 30 years after the tragic death of Selena, the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole denied her killer parole. The decision, which came down just hours ago, may come as a relief to the millions of fans who continue to mourn the loss of one of the biggest Latina icons. Here's 2020 co-anchor Deborah Roberts.
Nosotros tocamos música para todas edades. Tocamos bailadas, salsa, merengue, todo, música tejana, todo.
Hi, I'm Selena from Los Dinos. Invite you to tune in.
The queen of Tejano music, Selena Quintanilla, known for hits like Bitty Bitty Bam Bam. And quinceañera favorite, Baila Esta Cumbia.
She really was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of artist. You know, it shows the mastery of her artistry.
The international icon kickstarted mainstream acknowledgement of what was then an often ignored American audience, raking in endorsement deals across the spectrum.
Por eso tengo call notes para recibir mis mensajes.
She was the first Tejano artist to win Best Album in the Mexican-American category for her album, Live. which had live renditions of her hits like La Cacacha.
Combining American R&B with was essentially Mexican American roots music to innovate this whole new genre that not only changed Latin music, but American pop music forever.
The crossover superstar changed the music industry for Latino musicians.
What's it like? Well, it's like a dream come true. I never thought we'd get this far, but we're here.
But nearly 30 years ago, her monumental trajectory was cut short.
What happened next is not in dispute, not even by Yolanda Saldivar. It was she who fired the single gunshot that killed the young singer.
Selena Quintanilla was murdered.
We have lost a superstar, okay, that cannot be replaced. In terms of the local community, the Hispanic community, and all the community, we have lost a role model, a great role model.
On March 31st, 1995, Yolanda Saldivar shot and killed the singer at a Days Inn motel in Corpus Christi, Texas.
One of the things you did want to set straight is exactly what happened in that motel room, March 31st. What happened that morning when Selena arrived?
As you know, we went to the hospital that morning. When we came back, Selena came to the hotel room, and we were discussing some other things.
Did she say she wanted to fire you?
That never. She never told me that.
Were you arguing?
We were talking.
Saldivar claims they were talking about business records that she needed for tax filing when a confrontation between the two broke out.
And I grabbed the gun, put it in my head, and I told her, I told you that I would take this truth with me to my grave, and I mean it.
She claimed.
And in that instant, the gun went off.
You were holding the gun to your head, and you said, don't close the door, and it went off? But why didn't it hit you?
Because I was pointing to the door. I was signaling. I went, don't close the door, and it just went.
Did you know she was hit?
No, I did not know.
She worked so hard to get to the very top, and then somebody took it all away from her.
She had already gone a long ways, and this should never have happened.
Saldivar was sentenced to life in prison. Selena's legacy has grown into something much larger than it was 30 years ago, with influences on celebrities like Keke Palmer.
I just saw her and said hello.
And Beyonce.
Definitely growing up in Texas, I heard her on the radio.
We see her impact in fashion and culture to this day. She's become, cultural patrimony, the heritage that we pass on to our daughters. That's why you see young girls, who were not alive when Selena was alive, who love her and who still connected to her. She's become bigger than just Selena Quintanilla. She's all of us.
She is certainly not forgotten. Our thanks to Deborah Roberts for that. Joining us now for more on the impact of Selena and her fandom is ABC News contributor and Selena lover, Roxy Diaz. Roxy, thank you so much for joining us. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I know this is really cool.
So give us a sense of what you think it is about Selena that she, 3 decades strong, still has this hold really in people's hearts.
It's like one of those artists that you grew up with, and then now probably your mom or your auntie or your sister grew up with, and you heard the music playing over and over and over in the households. And Selena was just able to transcend through all those different generations. We grew up listening to Selena as we were cleaning the house. It's just something that you would do, And her music broke barriers across so many different genres. She was one of the first ever Tejano artists to be able to break through not only in Spanish, but English as well. And during that time, that was just never heard of before. So her music, it just still resonates to this day. Songs like Como una Flor, still playing across playlists all over the world. I mean, she's still a force.
And really has been able to transcend age, race, culture. You have non-Spanish speakers who are on TikTok singing her songs as if they're fluent. Why do you think that is? Does that surprise you that even young people who were not around during the real peak of her time?
No, it doesn't surprise me because, again, it's one of those situations where the younger generation is now getting reintroduced to Selena. Thank God for the power of TikTok and social media for a good cause in this instance. You know, fans get to share what they love about her. They get to share favorite lyrics, favorite songs. And I know you're always up for a good viral challenge. So those viral challenges live on and they're shared all over the world. So it's really a way that fans can connect to her legacy.
You talked about cleaning the house, listening to her music growing up. When you think about her, when you hear her music, what do you feel?
You know, for me as a Latina woman, she was just a symbol of empowerment, of strong will for pride, that you can come from the United States and also have Mexican roots at the same time and be proud of both of those identities. And myself growing up as a Honduran woman and also growing up here in the States, it was like you were able to live out the best of both worlds. So for a lot of Latinos, the Latinx community here, she just means the world to us to be able to represent both.
So well said, Roxy. Thank you so much for joining us. So good to have you here. Coming up, it is baseball's opening day. The fans are back in the ballpark, but there's something else stretching the sport to its breaking point. We'll crunch the numbers. And Florida's so desperate to fill low-wage jobs, it's considering allowing 14-year-olds to work overnight shifts. Those details coming up. Welcome back, everyone. The 2025 MLB season is now underway, with each team setting off on a new 162-game gauntlet. And while some franchises certainly have a financial advantage in getting the best players, right now everyone sees a path toward championship glory. Let's get into opening day by the numbers. We should note two teams, the Dodgers and Cubs, actually began their seasons last week in Japan. Speaking of the Dodgers, the defending champs hope to be the first team in 25 years to repeat as champions after the Yankees won 3 straight from 1998 to 2000. One advantage the Dodgers have: a major league high $398.2 million luxury tax payroll, according to SpotTrack. Compare that with the Miami Marlins' $82.6 million payroll, which ranks last. Meanwhile, fans will watch how Juan Soto does with the Mets after they agreed to a whopping record $765 million contract over 15 years. And fans of two teams, the Rays and Athletics, will be watching from new ballparks after both teams moved into temporary homes. But whatever happens, fans are certainly coming out to the ball game. MLB says more than 71 million fans attended games last season, the highest total in 7 years. Also, remember, we said it's been 25 years since there's been a repeat champion. Since 2016, different teams have won a World Series, so anything is possible. Coming up, a stunning show in the sky tonight if you're looking from the right place. And we speak with the daughter of Giselle Pellico, the woman whose public rape trial led to convictions for her husband and 50 others. She has a new book out on surviving trauma and seeking justice. It's a case that stunned the world and turned the survivor at the center of it all into the face of resilience and bravery. Dominique Pellico was put on trial for drugging, assaulting, and/or raping his wife Giselle and inviting a slew of men to join the abuse, a pattern that spanned nearly a decade, some of which was caught on video. During a public trial, he and 50 other men were found guilty. Giselle believes the outcome was due to the large amounts of evidence, and she is now using her own story to shine a light on other survivors, including her daughter, Caroline Darian, who is pressing charges against her father, claiming that he drugged and raped her too, though her father denies those claims. Now, Darian, whose new last name is a mixture of the two first names of her brothers, writes about her family's tragedy, strength, and turning private trauma into a collective fight for justice. In her new book, I'll Never Call Him Dad Again. And we do want to warn you, the details of this case may be disturbing for some. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us what this was like, putting pen to paper to really reveal a tumultuous, I think is an understatement, familial experience.
Well, you know, when we discovered that awful story, it was back in 2020, we really went through a tough time. But I just wanted to share, the shock, and the purpose was really to transform this ordeal into a collective fight, because behind the scene is really the chemical submission that my father, that I will never be able to call him that again, but that Dominique, my father, was able to use for raping my mom. So I think I really wanted to make something useful for the others and the many other victims.
What was your reaction when investigators came to you and said it wasn't just your mom, but perhaps you were involved and a victim as well?
It was a nightmare, because I didn't realize that my dad stopped me looking at me as his daughter. So when I had to look at those pictures, some which I'm fully naked, and they were shared with some strangers, and those two pictures, but I know that I was sedated.
How do you deal with that then? And how have you been able to mourn the family that you once knew and loved?
Writing this book was a first step for rebuilding myself, but it was not enough. It's not enough. And when you discover this type of crime, for recovering and be able to go beyond or over this, the only thing that I've found is my engagement, my commitment for driving awareness about this cause, this health issue, because what we've been through is not an isolated case. I think it's much more than that.
Your mom has said shame must change sides. What does she mean by that?
She means that it's not to the victims to bear on their shoulder the shame of being drugged or being raped or being, betrayed, by someone. And sometimes, and even often, it's someone that you know. It's not a stranger. It could be an husband, a friend, a colleague, a parent.
You write in the book, I bear a crushing double burden. I am the child of both the victim and her tormentor. How do you and your mother support each other at this point?
We are rebuilding ourselves as we can. So now she is focusing on herself. She is getting prepared for another trial because 10 of those men interject appeal. So there's going to be another trial in France. It's always tricky for me. But anyway, yes, I wanted to press charges against Dominique for what he did, and I'm still looking for the truth. And I'm waiting for the truth. And I won't give up.
You and your mom, as I'm sure you're aware, have been such an inspiration to women around the world. What would you say to victims who are afraid of coming forward? They feel shame or guilt or embarrassment.
I want to encourage every victim, not only women, even if they're, most of the time, the majority of the victims of sexual assault. But I want to let them know that they are strong. We all are strong, even if we have some weaknesses. I know it's not that easy to tell our own story, but I think it's worth sharing every story, because this is how we are going to make change in our society. It's a collective movement.
Do you have children?
I have a child.
And what will your relationship look like, their relationship look like going forward with Dominique?
Oh, it's over. Every children of our family understand that is in jail, and it's over for everyone of his family. Dominique is dead.
Caroline, we thank you so much for sharing your story with us and with the world. You can find I'll Never Call Him Dad Again, Turning Our Family Trauma of Sexual Assault and Chemical Submission into a Collective Fight anywhere books are sold. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse and needs help, be sure to call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. The number is on your screen. More Americans dip into retirement savings early. Florida considers loosening child labor laws and an American honor for a golden girl. These stories and more in tonight's rundown.
A doctor suspected of trying to kill his wife by hitting her with a rock and attempting to push her off a hiking trail in Hawaii appeared in court today after being charged with second-degree murder. Gerhard Koenig fled the scene after police were called by witnesses and was arrested after a brief pursuit, according to local authorities. His wife was hospitalized in critical condition after the incident. Koenig's bond has been set at $5 million. Another sign of a shaky economy, more Americans are tapping their retirement accounts earlier than planned. According to investment manager Vanguard, almost 5% of participants withdrew money from their retirement plans in 2024. That's up from 3.6% in 2023. Vanguard says the withdrawals are due mostly to stubborn inflation. A terrifying bedtime scare became a reality for a Kansas child after a babysitter found a man lurking underneath their bed. The Barton County Sheriff's Office said the babysitter was trying to reassure the child that there were no monsters under the bed, but then came face to face with the male suspect. Deputies tracked down and arrested the suspect the next day. He's being held on a $500,000 bond. A bill that would relax restrictions on working hours for Florida teenagers is moving through the state legislature amid an ongoing crackdown on illegal immigration. The bill would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work overnight shifts on school days and would also let some 14 and 15-year-olds work those same hours. A show in the sky tonight for millions of Americans. The northern lights should be visible from the northernmost states in the U.S. thanks to a geomagnetic storm on the sun. The best time to catch the aurora borealis is in the hours just before and after midnight. And an American honor for a golden girl. The U.S. Postal Service issuing this forever stamp featuring comedy legend Betty White. If you look closely at her earring, it's a paw print, honoring her advocacy for animals throughout her career. The First Lady of Television received 5 Emmys, a Grammy, and has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The actress and comedian passed away in 2021 at the age of 99.
Tonight, we are in Asheville, North Carolina, to see how people are rebuilding after Hurricane Helene. And we also met some high school students putting their skills to work to help their neighbors. Our Ginger Z has their story.
I want to help because I just want to give back to my community and help rebuild what we lost during the hurricane.
I can see this house go out and give somebody who doesn't have a home somewhere to live.
For the seniors in Jeremy Dott's Honors Carpentry class at Mountain Heritage High School, the lessons learned are changing lives.
When they heard that we had the opportunity to be able to build a home for people in our community that were directly affected, it was absolutely essential to the way the program just came together.
When Hurricane Helene ravaged so much of the region, many people were forced to start all over, like Sherry Housley.
I was gutted. It was just a total shock. I just sat there. I remember sitting on what was left of concrete blocks of the foundation of my home and just thinking, I don't know where to go. I don't know how to cope with this.
So those students went to work to help get Sherry back on her feet.
It makes me feel very proud knowing that I am able to help and change someone's life that is in need through not only school, but building and just helping out those that can't really help themselves.
Teaming up with Stephanie Johnson's Rebuilding Hollers, a charity that was formed after Helene.
We have so many community members that lost their homes, and all of these boys were affected by the storm. We all were. We all lived through everything that happened.
And this May, Sherry is getting ready to move into her new tiny home.
You can't even put it into words sometimes. It's just so great, and it's a blessing just to help others get back a house.
We have some awfully good young people in this neighborhood, in this community, and they are really showing off right now up there.
And that is just the beginning, with Rebuilding Hollers committing to nearly 400 repair projects for those who need them most.
I was flooded with water. Now I'm flooded with angels.
That community resourceful and resilient. Our thanks to Ginger Z. People have given supplies, their time, and generous donations, some pouring in from viewers totaling more than $2.7 million. There is still a chance to help by going to our website. As we mentioned earlier on Prime, it is opening day for Major League Baseball, and tens of thousands of fans today flocked to Yankee Stadium to bond over box scores, Cracker Jacks, and maybe a beer or two. But there was one very special fan, a 103-year-old World War II veteran who was born even before the original Yankee Stadium was ever opened. Our New York partner station, WABC, has this phenomenal story.
How are the Yankees going to do this year?
I think they're going to go all the way this year. This is their year.
Yes, the Bronx Bombers are back, and so are the tens of thousands who flocked to the stadium. Opening day, a chance for generations to bond over baseball. How strong is that love for the Yankees? Well, consider this. There's a 9-month-old missing from this photo.
We just named our son Judge.
No way.
We sure did. Our 4th child, his name is Judge.
Today, hope springs eternal at ballparks across the country. But for Yankee fans, it's a championship or bust after last season's disappointing World Series loss.
You know what? It's a good team. You got Judge as the captain, got some new faces, Goldschmidt, and I love Jazz Chisholm. He's really good.
Most of the kids at the stadium skipped school in observance of the unofficial holiday, but these two were working. Meet Carter and Cooper Thomas, better known as the Twin Stripe Reporters. Who's the better reporter of you two?
Me.
Who's the bigger Yankee fan?
Me.
Who's better looking?
Me.
From the youngest fans to, well, the oldest. Decorated World War II veteran Dominic Critelli, honored by the Yankees during the 7th inning.
The first time I've been to this stadium. Yeah.
All right.
I have never seen this. I'm so, it's so enthused, you know. I want to see what it's all about.
And he got a chance to see what it's all about. Our thanks to WABC reporter Ryan Field. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.